And that's what we do. We distort our perceptions of ourselves by comparison. We're not here to put people on pedestals or pits. We're here to put them in a heart. It's very seldom do I do a presentation without mentioning values because they're the cornerstone of our very perception, decisions, and actions and our identity. So every human being lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most to least important in their life. And you do this. Your perceptions, your decisions, your actions, therefore your behavior, is an expression of what those values are. Whatever is highest on your value, the very highest, you spontaneously are inspired to do that action. It's intrinsic. You feel, in a sense, called to do that. You don't have to be reminded or motivated or externally stimulated to get you to do that. And whatever's highest on your value, your identity revolves around. Your purpose revolves around. And the area of your expertise revolves around. So whatever's highest on your value is really the path of your identity, who you are. When you're living according to this highest value and living literally by priority, the blood glucose and oxygen goes into the forebrain, activates the medial prefrontal cortex, the executive center they call it. And this, according to Scientific American, is like the seat of the self. It's the seat of integration of all the fractures, all the fragmentations that we have. It's where we have the most integration of interneurons in the brain, and we have the most, you might say, summary of who we are. So if we live by priority, we increase the probability of living authentically, and we have the greatest potential to know who we are. 1,000, 2,000 years ago in Greece, plus, the Delphic Oracle was supposedly stated that know thyself, be thyself, love thyself. Well, your identity revolves around what you value most. If you prioritize and organize your life accordingly, you get to be yourself. And when you do, you feel more fulfilled and you feel love for yourself. But when you're doing things lower and lower on your value list, they become more extrinsic. And you feel that you have to have motivation, external motivation, to get you to do it. What's highest on your value, you're disciplined, reliable, and focused to do. But what's lower on your value, you procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate to do. You don't like to be identified by it. My highest value is teaching. I identify myself as a teacher. Lower values, there may not be a lowest because those are potentially infinite, but lower value in my life would be cooking or driving. If somebody came up to me and said, hey, John, the cook or the driver, I wouldn't respond. I would disown and not identify by that. So we tend to identify around what we value most. So identifying what really is most important, what's most intrinsic to us, what's most authentic to us, is the first step of knowing yourself. Every week I teach a program, well, almost every week, I teach a program called the Breakthrough Experience. This week I'm doing 3 of them. So some weeks it may be 2 weeks before I could do the next one. But each week I have people that are saying, I don't know what my purpose is. I'm not sure exactly how to define what's really important to me. And one of the reasons why is they are comparing themselves to other people. And many of those people they put up on pedestals. They think they're smarter. They think they're more successful. They think they're more wealthy. They think they're more stable in their relationship. They think they're more socially savvy or connected. They feel that they're more physically fit or beautiful. They feel that they're more spiritually aware. The moment we compare ourselves to others and subordinate to them, in a sense, putting them up on a pedestal, and we're too humble to admit what we see in them inside ourselves, we diminish ourselves and then inject some of their values into our life. When we do, we end up thinking, I ought to be doing this. I should be doing this. I got to, have to, must, supposed to, need to do that. Anytime you hear yourself using imperative language, got to, have to, must, should, ought to, supposed to, need to, you can pretty well bet that that's an injected value by some outer authority you compared yourself to. The moment you compare yourself to somebody that you think is above you, you'll minimize yourself. You'll second guess yourself. You'll have great ideas, but you won't act on them because, well, somebody else has probably thought of that. And some people call that limiting beliefs. Some people call that sabotage. I think it's just a feedback to let you know that you're not being authentic. You're not being your true self. You're not knowing yourself. You're comparing yourself to others. I want you to imagine for a second, just a game here. I want you to imagine 3 beakers of water in front of you, sitting on a table. Little bowls of water. Not beakers, but bowls. And in one, the temperature is 40 degrees. It's nearly freezing. In the middle one, there's one that's about 72 degrees, room temperature. And there's another one over here on the right that's 140 degrees, very hot. If you were to put a thermometer in them, you would get exactly those numbers, 40, 140, 72. But if you put your hand in the 40-degree water and then take it out and then stick it into the 72, you will perceive the 72-degree water as around 90. Because of the comparison, your brain will create a subjective bias instead of an objective measurement. And it will distort what it is by comparison. So if you put something that's colder, put your hand in something colder and then put it in something normal, it'll feel hotter. And if you stick your hand into that which is hotter, 140 degrees, whoa, it burns. And then stick it in the temperature of 72, which are objective measurements, it's got a thermometer there, you will swear in your measurement that that's around 50 degrees, much colder than you think. So the moment we compare ourselves to others, we have a distorted, subjective, biased view about who we are. We're not being authentic to ourselves. But the second we don't compare or level the playing field, see, if we don't put them above us or below us in temperature, we don't have that subjective. If it's all 72 degrees, you put it in there, they all come out 72. And you have a real pretty close idea what the temperature is. But the second you compare it and put something above you or below you, you'll distort your perception of yourself. And the temperature, which is you in the center, will feel, instead of 72, it'll feel 90 or 50. And you will exaggerate yourself if you put people down colder. You'll minimize yourself if you put people up hotter. And that's what we do. We distort our perceptions of ourselves by comparison. We're not here to put people on pedestals or pits. We're here to put them in a heart. And the moment we have an equilibrium between ourselves and them, and we have reflective awareness where we see whatever we see in them is inside us, and we're not too humble or too proud to admit what we see in them inside us, we're authentic and we know ourselves. When you infatuate with somebody, you're conscious of their upsides, unconscious of their downsides. So you're ignorant of their downsides. You're missing information. You don't really know them. When you're resentful to somebody, you're conscious of their downsides, unconscious of upsides, and you're ignorant of the upsides. You don't really know them. When you see both sides and they're balanced and they're symmetrical, and you see both of them at the same time, you know them. You really only know yourself when you see both sides of yourself equally. But if you put people on pedestals, you'll minimize and be ignorant of your upsides. You put people down, you'll exaggerate and pride, and you'll be ignorant of your downsides, and you won't know yourself, and you'll have uncertainty. If I said to you, you're always up, never down, or always down, never up, you wouldn't believe me. You'd have uncertainty. But if I said sometimes you're up and down, you would go, yep, that's true. So what we do is we go through, and when we compare ourselves to other people, we have a subjective misinterpretation of who we are, and we lose track of it. And we're designed to. Because anytime we judge another individual, we're getting feedback to ourselves of uncertainty, and we're exaggerating, minimizing them, and minimizing, exaggerating us. And we're designed to get chaos and uncertainty and unfulfillment doing so. Because whenever we're too humble or too proud to admit what we see in them is inside us, we have disowned parts, dismembered parts, deflected parts, which creates a void, a feeling of emptiness. That's why when we judge people, we feel empty. When we love people and embrace what we see in them inside us and own whatever we see and level the playing field, we have a clear interpretation of who we are. As a result of it, we get to love ourselves. We get to know ourselves. We get to be ourselves. So know thyself, be thyself, love thyself. That's what it means. The Delphic Oracle was maybe left out some of those details, but what I just did is filled some in. Now, you can sit there and all day long you can compare yourself to other people, but it's wiser to compare yourself, your own actions, to what you value most. How congruent and aligned are you to what you value most? To the degree that you do, you master yourself and you maximize your potential. I was reading and watching a video and reading something about Phelps, the swimmer, and it was really interesting. He basically realized if he was about to get on the stand and dive into the water for a swimming competition, he knew if he compared himself to the guy on the left or right, he automatically didn't make the win. But if he focused ahead on what's his primary objective and be a man on a mission or a woman on a mission and not distract with the judgment, you excel. And this is the key. We're here to prioritize our life and stick to the highest priority. Anytime we don't fill our day with high priority actions, it fills up with low priority distractions. And the low priority distractions are all of the infatuations and resentments, the impulses and the instincts, the pleasures without pains or the pains without pleasures that distract us from being present. Nature has a way of bringing both pleasure and pain into our life. When we embrace both of them equally, we have a real objective in life. If we're willing to endure the challenges and the supports and the pursuit of something deeply meaningful, we're stable. But if we're trying to get rid of half of our life or half of other people's lives or half of our goal, we won't. We'll have instability. So it's important not to compare yourself to other people, but compare your daily actions to what you value most. Know thyself means know what's really important. That's why my website, I have on complimentary on the drdemartini.com, is a value determination process. You can go on there, you can do the exercise. It takes about 30 minutes of your time. It's private, and it's there for you to go through and ask 13 questions to help you identify what's really important in your life. So a lot of people, when you ask people what's important to them and what their values are, and I've been doing that 45 years of my 51 years of teaching, and I assure you, I've got some demonstrations and proof that not everybody knows themselves as much as they like to think. I have people that come up and say, I want to be financially independent, yet their life is demonstrating that they keep buying consumables that depreciate in value, and they're not really doing what's really important to them as far as building wealth. And some people say, I want to have a relationship. And then they realize that they're wounded from the past. They haven't cleared that wound, and they're holding on to that wound, and they're protecting themselves by making sure that they don't rely on somebody else in a relationship. So what people say is not always what they're actually living. And that's why I want to know what the values of the individual are and what their life demonstrates, because that tells me what's true. And that's why your actions speak louder than your words. So that's why I encourage you to go to the website and do the value determination, or come to the breakthrough experience where I actually have you go through it and help you do it so it's most accurately done. So that way you get to know yourself so you can start structuring your life accordingly. And what's interesting is when you live by your highest values, you're less volatile and you're less emotional and you're more objective and you're less judging. But when you're not living by the highest values, you're more vulnerable and you're more likely to be in judgment. When you're not fulfilled, your blood glucose and oxygen goes down the amygdala and you go into avoiding pain and seeking pleasure, and you go into subjective bias as a survival response. That's why it's important to make sure that you focus on what's priority and stick to your highest values on a daily basis if you want to master your life and you want to be truly yourself. The key to truly understanding your true self. But the question is this: what happens if you're sitting there and you're constantly distracted by impulses and instincts? And many people are. And this is primarily because of the subconsciously stored baggage that you got in your life. That all the wounds and all the fantasies. As long as you have philias and phobias, fantasies and nightmares, and pleasures without pains and pains without pleasures stored in your life, you're going to be easily vulnerable to the external world running you. See, if you're infatuated with somebody, it occupies space and time in your mind and runs you. If you resent somebody, it occupies space and time in your mind and runs you. It's hard to sleep at night when you're highly infatuated or highly resentful. Therefore, anytime you have those polarities of perception and subjective biases, you have noise in the brain, you have chaos distracting you from being your present self and understanding who you really are. That's why I teach the breakthrough experience, to show people with the Demartini method how to dissolve that subconsciously stored baggage. So you can basically be present with yourself. And when you do and live by highest priority, I teach in the breakthrough experience how to live by highest priority, to find the priorities, how to live by it, how to structure it, how to delegate things, how to manifest things accordingly, how to dissolve subconsciously baggage so people can master their life and basically live an authentic understood life. I really believe that you have the capacity to be yourself and not have to sit there and compare yourself all day long and be distracted by subconscious baggage. Subconscious baggage is nothing but the perceptions in the past that have imbalanced ratios. If I go in and I see something I'm infatuated with and I see more positive and negative, it's an imbalanced ratio. If I see more negatives and positives and I resent something, it's an imbalanced ratio. When I love somebody, I see both sides. It's called mindfulness. It's called fulfillment. It's called equanimity. It's called objectivity. It's called truth. It's got different names, but when we actually have a balanced orientation, we're resilient. If we're highly infatuated, we're going to fear its loss. If we're highly resentful, we're going to fear its gain. If we're neutral, we have neither of those fears. We're resilient. We're adaptable. Stress is the inability to adapt to a changing environment. When you're neutral, you don't have the distress. You have eustress, which means you're willing to embrace the pleasures and pains equally in the pursuit of something deeply meaningful. And you have meaning in life. The meaning in life is between the excess and deficiency, as Aristotle said. It's the balanced state. It's the golden mean. It's the place where we actually have the most fulfillment. So, in summary, if we take the time to prioritize our life, determine what our hierarchy of values are, and start living our life by priority and prioritize our life and delegate lower priority things and give ourselves permission to be authentic because our highest values, our identity is, our purpose is, and where we excel, that's the first step. So do the value determination or come to the breakthrough experience and let me show you how to do that. Then start prioritizing your life. And then if you're not delegating lower priority things, you're going to be trapped doing things low priority. Anytime you do low priority things, you're going to have lower depreciation of yourself, lowered self-worth. And that's designed that way to give you feedback, to let you know you're not being yourself and authentic. You're not managing your life. And then if you compare yourself to somebody, you're going to hold yourself back. Instead of doing that, if you see somebody and you look up to them, go and find out exactly what it is that you perceive in them, find out where you have it. And if you resent them, go find out where you have that. Have reflective awareness and own all your traits. As they say in theology, at the level of the soul, nothing's missing in you. You have fulfillment, pleroma. At the level of the senses, things seem to be missing in you. You have judgment, emptiness. Take the time to go and have reflective awareness. That's what the breakthrough experience is for and the Demartini method's for, to ask you quality questions, to make you aware of what you're unconscious of, so you can be fully conscious, so you can love again, so you can be inspired again, so you can live authentically again, so you can understand yourself, be yourself, and love yourself. So come to the breakthrough experience and let me share with you in a 25-hour period what I can do to transform your life and help you do that. So take the time to go to the Demartini value determination process and website, come to the breakthrough experience, and let me share with you some amazing ideas and principles and methodology you can use the rest of your life on how to truly know and understand yourself, appreciate yourself, and do something extraordinary with your life. So until next week, Dr. Demartini, see you then, see you at the breakthrough experience.